everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today's book is Michael McIntyre autobiography, A Funny Life. It's a signed copy. I got this, I think I previously said that I got this for Christmas, but I feel like I actually got it for my birthday. I remember seeing it in a bookshop with my mum and I was just like, look mum, it's signed. And she was just like, do you want it as a gift? And I was just like, I honestly did not mind that I knew what this present was. And I'll admit, Michael McIntyre is one of my favourite comedians. He's up there for me with Eddie Izzard, Victoria Wood, Sarah Millican. As I was reading this, I can tell you that I didn't feel like he was embellishing anything. I genuinely believed all these things actually happened to him, because he's just one of those people where you can just see these things happening. We've seen the things that he gets himself into, and of course, like with stand-up, it's always an embellishment. They always like heighten things a bit, but he's just one of those people where you can genuinely believe the sticky situations he gets himself into. It talks about his kind of rise into fame. He's very honest in this book about the fact that he wanted the fame and he wanted people to know his name. And when you hear people say, no, I don't do it to be famous, and it's just like, come on, yeah you do. And Michael does not shy away from that in this book. He's very, very honest about the fact that to be famous in comedy means that he has a career, and it's a good thing when people know his name, because it means that people are watching him, they are laughing with him, seeing his career rise in this book. And when he talks about like his appearance on Live at the Apollo, which really like plunged his name into the spotlight, plunged. And I was just there going, I remember watching that and I remember crying with laughter, because he talks about like this, like, what was it, a 10-15 minute slot on Live at the Apollo where he literally had a panic attack backstage. He walked out of the building, walked up to a roundabout and was tempted to call a taxi to drive him home. He was that terrified of that TV performance. And yet when he talks about that set and remembering what he did, and I'm just like, I remember that. The bit when he's talking about the bus route and the snow and people walking the bus route in the snow, coming to a bus stop, stopping and then walking back in the opposite direction. And I remember crying with laughter at that story. So knowing the inner turmoil he was going through before he went on for that, it just shows you kind of the complete opposite side of everything. And I've seen it before, especially in people like Victoria Wood. Victoria Wood always used to joke that when it comes to comedy, you either play golf or you're depressed. That is taken from Victoria Wood's stand-up. So that's literally what Victoria Wood said in one of her stand-up routines. And it's very much about that high you get when you're on stage and things are going well, and then you come off the stage and it's just like, where's that buzz gone? I want that buzz, I want that. So just knock things off my desk. But yeah, it's the way that I think for any performer, how they feed off that energy. It's just so interesting to read about stuff like this, because I'll admit, at uni we did have a section on like comedy and stand-up, and there was a part of the course where people actually had to write their own stand-up and perform it. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do it, and I had a sick day that day when everybody was doing their stand-up, because I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I completely admire people who can stand up and essentially be themselves on stage. I mean, Michael McIntyre admits in this book that it is essentially a character that he has, and that he does like heighten his personality when he's on stage. But at the same time, reading this book and reading about the things that happens to him like in real life and how he incorporates that into his stand-up shows you that his on-stage persona is not that different from him in real life. If you like Michael McIntyre, if you like anything comedy, you'll really enjoy this. I love that it covers like the highs and lows of his career, of his relationship with his wife Kitty, and the birth of his sons. I just find it so interesting hearing about people's careers. I mean, one of my favourite biographies is Julie Andrews. Julie Andrews' biography was just magic. And I think there's 3 sections of photos in this one. Is it 3? I thought it was 3, but I think there's only 2 actually. But it's just, I love it when you've got like the pictures and he talks about like the little anecdotes and things. You got him with his wife, you got him on stage For Lying and Laughing. You got Showtime. I think it was Showtime that I saw him at Manchester Arena. It was so good. Got him pictures of his agent and things, and his relationship with his agent, which was Addison. The way he talks about him is obviously there was a huge respect for his agent, and so when you get to the point in the in Michael's story when you find out that his agent passed away and how he dealt with that, especially kind of when he was just really coming into his own. You know, he'd had his big break live at the Apollo, he had so many things going on for him, and they were preparing what was essentially going to be a chat show originally, which when I was reading about the chat show I was just there thinking, I don't remember this happening, and it was just like, oh, it was because it turned into Michael McIntyre's Comedy Roadshow, and it took elements from the Roadshow, and then it became Michael McIntyre's big show, where he had all like the celebrities, and he'd have them up in the balcony, and he'd play like centre wall with them, and they had like the unexpected star of the show and things. It was the fact that that originally started as a chat show concept, which somehow I managed to completely miss. I think it was because it was like on Monday nights, and so it was just wasn't on my radar when the chat show format started, but then they were able to kind of transfer the stuff that worked from the chat show into his theatre stuff. I think there was a point when they were talking about bringing like the Palladium back on ITV, and Michael was working for the BBC at that point, and he went to ITV and said, I want to be your host. I want to host at the Palladium, that's my dream. And so he said that, you know, he'd do anything to do it, and so ITV essentially offered him the job. And then he went back to the BBC and said, I want to do the Palladium, I want to do it with ITV. And then BBC came back and said, if that's what you want to do, we'll create your own show here at the BBC with a similar format, but it'll be for you. And it's not going to be just like a guest host doing the Palladium on ITV. This will be your series. And he had to go back to ITV and say, sorry, after I came to you saying I want to host Live at the Palladium, I've now got my own thing happening at the BBC. Yeah, just seeing his rise through that, because I think I've got another book of his in my wardrobe that I read years ago. It's just so funny, and I love how he shares the stories that eventually led to parts of his stand-up. I'd love to see one of his like warm-up gigs, because if you don't know, in comedy a lot of the time they'll do like warm-up gigs where they'll go out to like smaller venues to kind of test out like jokes on people to then compilate it all into a fully fledged show for like the theatres and the arenas. And yeah, I think seeing one of those from Michael McIntyre would be absolutely brilliant, just to see kind of like his mind working and seeing how quick he is on his feet in those warm-ups, because those kind of settings are a lot more informal, and so you do get more hecklers and things. And yeah, I know my sister and my brother-in-law have seen a couple of like warm-up acts, some like comedy stuff, because like we've got like Leeds up the road, and so yeah, a lot of like the warm-up gigs up in Leeds. I just really enjoyed this. As I was reading it, I did take off the dust jacket because it was just easier rather than getting the dust jacket caught on stuff. Michael McIntyre, A Funny Life. The inside of it is just red with the foil on the side with his name on it and everything. And then for the bit that everybody wants to see, which I was very, very excited about when I found out it was signed, there is his autograph. So the fact that I have seen him live, and now I've got a signed version of his book, even though I've obviously never met him. I'm not usually the person who goes to like the book tours and things, like when authors go out on book tours and like you can meet people at like Waterstones and other bookshops. I've never done that. Maybe I might do that one day. I am a big reader. I've just never felt the need to do that. But maybe one day I might for somebody. You never know. But yeah, Michael McIntyre, A Funny Life, autobiography. It's just so interesting to read about his life and his career and his family and the money issues that he and his family had before like he really got like his big break. Yeah, can you tell I love this book? It was just so good. It did take me a while to read it, mainly because I've been working so much lately. I have been working a lot. I've had the show. If you haven't watched any others of this off Vlogmas and you didn't pay attention to the intro, this has been filmed in July. During the heat wave. All it says on the back is, I became a comedian because at its best stand-up comedy is magical. In a room filled with people, one person is facing everyone else and rendering them helpless with face-hurting laughter. I wanted that one person to be me. he just seems like such a lovely guy, and seeing him talk about the gigs that didn't go as well and where he got like really nervous and stuff, it kind of made me wanted to go back and watch some of the clips of the times where he was absolutely mortified just to see if it was as bad as he remembers it to be, because I'll admit, you know, Michael McIntyre isn't for everybody, everybody's got different taste in comedy, but generally I don't think I've ever heard a bad word about Michael McIntyre. I think he genuinely comes across as just a really lovely guy. If I ever got a chance to meet Michael McIntyre, I would just tell him how he really did just make me cry with laughter when I saw him on tour, when I saw him in Manchester. There was this whole section on names where he was talking about how the different spellings of names should affect the pronunciations, and it just made me think of my own family. You know, my mum's name, it begins with a Y. My own name, Deborah, is spelled Deborah, and my sister always used to make fun of me with my name. You know, it's like the short version of the name Deborah, Deborah, whereas mine is Deborah, which is what my sister always used to call me, but there's a H on the end, so it would be Deborah. In the case of like what Michael does in his stand-up where he does Sarah versus Sarah. Yeah, that whole section of his comedy just really made us evaluate the names in our family and the different ways it could be pronounced. It sounds so stupid, but there was also in that one where he talks about going to the dentist and people talking to him while he's got like his mouth open and like everything in his mouth, and goes, "My name is Michael Akinkaka."
For the last time, my name is Akinkaka.
Just so good. Michael McIntyre, A Funny Life. If you like comedy, if you like Michael McIntyre, if you just like a good biography, it's a good one to read. It is so funny. I genuinely laughed out loud while reading this book. So yeah, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and tune in tomorrow for another day of Vlogmas.